Okay, it's Thursday. It's the morning after the big debate or the whatever debate on part of the 8 GOP candidates. Jeremy and I watched, and as promised, here's our view of the winners and losers done completely independently because I haven't talked to you about it. I right to bed last night afterward, and I suppose you did too. So here we go. Here's how I'd like to do it. Uh, we'll each take a look at a couple of winners and see if we agree or not. Then I'd like to jump to a few losers, definite losers. You do the same. And then in the meantime, maybe we can pick up some of the folks in the middle. I'd at least like to list some of the folks who, you know, were actually pretty good, but, didn't really stand out. So are you ready for my two big winners last
Yeah,
night?
yeah.
Okay. And there's going to be disagreement here in the world. Um, I thought the biggest winner of all was Governor Haley of South Carolina. I didn't expect it, but what I saw from her last night was she was the adult in the room, um, and she sought consensus on difficult issues like abortion. I thought she took a very even-handed approach. Now, remember, we're talking within the context of a Republican primary. She did say that climate change is real, and she didn't shut the door on that. And then I think what was most impressive was that she was a risk taker in that uh, she charged the GOP with being as much, if not more, to blame for heavy spending, and said, "Stop blaming just the Democrats." She said in the last budget, uh, there were billions of dollars for earmarks. That's money that's designated for congressional districts. She said GOP congressman asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks, while Democrats asked for just 2.8 billion. She also differentiated herself by being the woman. You want somebody to say something, ask a man. You want somebody to do something, ask a woman. I think at the very least, what Nikki Haley did, if it's not putting herself in contention for the nomination, is that she didn't hurt herself in any way as a potential uh, a VP nominee. I think particularly in her ability to send a consensus moderate message to suburban. So that was my big winner. My runner-up was Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, wow, he gave and he took last night. But I think what stood out about him is that he called for a new generation of leadership. He defined a unique persona for him. He was clearly substantive. And above all, and this is a two-way sword, as we'll see, he was charismatic. On one hand, he appealed to MAGA voters, no support for Ukraine. He would pardon Donald Trump. Um, he set himself apart from the others by stunningly saying, well, the rest of you are bought and paid for. That certainly got under a number of folks' collars. And I think in particular, uh, Mike Pence, Chris Christie, and Asa Hutchinson. Uh, I think especially got under the collar, though, of Pence and Christie. What he also showed is uh, if this is a campaign for vice president, why Vivek will not be nominated for vice president. One of the rules of the game is a nominee cannot pick somebody so charismatic and so good on his feet that he or she will dominate media and dominate attention. And I cannot see Donald Trump running with someone he's going to have to compete with for attention. And so I think he's too energetic and uh, possibly even narcissistic. He is a flamethrower, no question about that. And he, like Haley, carved out the persona as to why they were there, why they. Those are my two winners.
Yeah. I'm going to take a different perspective rather than trying to award a gold or a silver and a silver medal. I'm going to combine both my expectations going in and
Mhm.
what I thought and felt as I watched this, coupled with trying to imagine, as you and I have been, as we track very closely public opinion by party breakdown, trying to imagine Republicans as a whole and those independent who lean right. So that's the prism that I'm going here. I would say that I think Ron DeSantis stood out. I think he delivered what he needed to deliver. I didn't think he had to overcompensate. It seemed like he's taking advice. He he wasn't too defensive. He was on the offense. There were moments where he just kind of stood back and gave this presence of I'm very much ahead of the rest of these guys, and I'm in command and I have a record. So I think he stood out. I thought Mike Pence did very well. I mean, this is a man who, if they're, like we have the School of Economics at universities and the School of Business and Management, if there were a school of politics, Mike Pence would be on the wall of fame. I mean, he is quintessential good politician on the debate stage. I thought he did better than I expected. About Haley and Ramaswamy, I thought Haley did a good job. I thought she beat expectations. I don't know if it could put her to the front of the pack in terms of performance. Ramaswamy, I'm in agreement with you, but at the same time, and maybe this is where you're talking about the narcissism. He just came out so overly confident that it was a little bit clownish, and I think it set himself up for that exchange with Christie, who just said, "Look, you're a 38-year-old. You're walking out on the stage. Basically, show some respect, you know." And yeah, I thought that sense that Ramaswamy brought to the interview I referenced in our previous podcast worked, but on a stage with seven other people, I don't think it worked. I think at the same time, people could be fascinated with his stances and his ability to um, take on certain ideas that are not popular, such as in his own words, saying climate change is a hoax and it's a wet blanket on the economy. At the same time, I think he was a little bit of a caricature and trying to create that aura of, the Barack Obama, but just didn't carry it.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump to the losers now. And I think in a bit of drama, I'm good. There were eight on the stage. I'm going to go number six, number seven, number eight is the biggest loser of all. Okay. So six, Mike Pence. I mean, he handled himself very beautifully. I think that but all guns were pointing to him yesterday. And remember, aside from evangelicals, he's got a very narrow road here to go down because the MAGA folks hate him for obvious reasons, and the anti-MAGA voters hate him because he was with Donald Trump. I think he handled himself very well when he said, I put the Constitution and my God for Donald Trump. And that's why I didn't. I thought that was a good comeback. But it's hard to see a lane, and I think that he'll get squeezed out on that evangelical side from his neighboring state of Utah. I'm sorry, of Indiana. I think that the evangelical vote will probably go to Tim Scott and Kristen. The true loser was Chris Christie, who almost went out there to lose, and to make his point. I thought he was very good. I mean, he's a skilled debater. He got in some very hard punches against Vivek. hard punches against Pence. Um, uh, I mean, some of them, in fact, towards Vivek, thought were withering. Um, on the other hand, um, um, he just didn't have the crowd with him at all. He was booed almost at every turn. A lot of it having to do with Trump, but a lot of it also having to do with the fact that he came out to fight and to make a point, and his point was not taken. I say the audience was a MAGA audience. The the Republican base and voters are a MAGA base. If Christie's trying to carve himself out um, a moderate constituency, may have a chance of showing. But remember, as we were talking about Iowa, he he's got to show. He's got to put some points on the board in Iowa in order to set the table for where he's supposed to be strong. Where he's now polling at about third place in New Hampshire. I don't know if he did that. The biggest loser to me was Ron DeSantis. Now I know I have I have not had much nice to say about Ron DeSantis, but here's what I saw last night. Right from the very beginning, I thought that Ron DeSantis was too hot for TV. TV is what we call a cool medium. You don't yell in the microphone, talk as if talking on one or in small group. The mic will do the rest. I think that he's scowled, he's angry, didn't quite know that this was the time to shut the anger off. Um, he did not read the memo that was put out for him, which was try to be likable. He, I saw where he didn't make any effort whatsoever, and his answers, I think, were vengeful. Why did he make policy the way he did? Because I was going after those who were, because it's those who are destroying, and I went after them, and I fired two prosecutors, which is questionable, incidentally, legally. I thought it was too combative, and his answers were filled too much with talking point rhetoric and not enough substance. And so uh, he, and that's when he was talking. Otherwise, I thought it was very wise of the other candidates to leave him alone
Hmm.
and to let him implode. And I honestly thought that not help himself at all yesterday. So those are
Huh.
my losers.
That's interesting because I mean I personally I am not a fan of Ron DeSantis.
Hmm?
I in fact we've talked at length about it. But I for some reason I didn't see that. I thought look he his arrogance is overbearing, but I thought he toned it down. But regardless, that's why we're here to discuss this. I would add to the mix as far as a loser. I would say Tim Scott. I
Mm.
just think compared to other performances that I've seen on TV, he by nature is an underwhelming person, and I makes up for it with the hope and the optimism. But he just didn't have his breath. I thought he fell short. And if you go by that one performance last night, of course he's got a lot of time going forward. But if you just went by that one performance last night, I think that would be the showstopper for any talk of VP.
I had him in the low middle. I mean, he didn't hurt himself except that he didn't help himself. I expected him to come out guns ablazing, and that doesn't mean being overly aggressive. It just means carving out a real persona for him, spelling out his story, which is a powerful story. I just don't think he did. So I'm in agreement. Uh, he was in the lower middle. The other two candidates I put in the middle too. Um, Look, if anybody out there who is turnkey to be the next president of the United States, it's Asa Hutchinson. He's got the biography, he's got the demeanor, he has a tremendous record of success. Talk about hot button issues. He hasn't read about them. He was active on the dispute, active on crime and on white collar crime, on education and reading scores and innovation in schools. But he just seems stale from a different era. What you saw, I think, was the Republicans' 2012 nominee, not 2024 nominee. Doug Burgum, I thought, was interesting. I mean, he didn't hurt himself at all.
Hmm.
Um, he got some points in there. I like I like the small town values as a concept. It's not necessarily a policy, but I like that idea of communitarianism. How do you fight crime? The way you do in a small town. If someone's in trouble, everybody gets together and helps. Somehow that's got to be transformed into city life and that kind of cooperation. Uh, but these guys didn't stand out. And the one that hurt the most was Scott because I expected him to stand out.
Yeah.
Any final comments on your part?
No, I would say that I think we covered it. When's the next one?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, how's that for an honest answer?
No, that's good. I guess then my only question is who do you think won the debate between you and I?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been
But
doing it longer.
let's have people vote. Okay, if you're out there listening or watching, why don't you send us a like or a dislike or just one word, John or Jeremy, and respond to us and let us know when the real debate. Um, okay, so we'll be watching. As always, you have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
All right.